species. And so we love hanging out and looking at these folks and understanding why they're so robust and you can't kill them, and seeing where these capabilities come from, because they're very important to our survival, not just not just if I want to go out into space, but the next time a gamma ray burst heads this way, they offer us clues on how to survive these things. So that's sort of my connection to the, let's say, the astrobiologic realm of things, and something I'm very keen on continuing studying here at the company.
All right, so we're combining microcosm to the macrocosm, which is cosmology, which happens to be, I wrote the book Knowing Cosmology, if anybody's interested. So I got to work that in. How about that?
I like cosmology.
Now, Knowing Cosmology. And folks, Jan, listen to this, Jan Harzan and Ira Pastor, you guys have never mentioned each other's name before in pre-existence to this show, right? You've never met?
No.
Nope.
Okay. What do you think about possibly being at least an email partner in the future, possibly at an event, if we can arrange it the next year or two, between 2020 and 2035, when we're supposed to be going to Mars, if we haven't already gotten there, in 2035, with people like... I don't know, Sir Richard, what is his name, Branson, and then we have Tom DeLonge.
Yep. And Elon Musk,
Elon Musk.
I'm open to communicating and sharing knowledge on this topic, because I think, I personally have thought that, however much Branson and Musk and whoever want to put into those projects, they better figure out how to keep those people alive during that trip, because they're going to experience a lot of nasty stuff along the way. So, and that's biology, or unique areas of astrobiology. So, but I've yet to see them put their billions into that type of research. But we'll see. I know they're laying off people at SpaceX, but I'll keep my fingers crossed that more resources will go into it.
All right. Jan Harzan, how would you respond to that, since I want you guys to weigh in with each other so we can maybe get into the future of having more events, or more, event tables or vendors at some of these events. What do you think, Jan?
Yeah, no,
I don't even know what the next one is.
Well, we're coming up in July. We've got a conference here in Southern California at the Hotel Irvine, July 26th to the 8th. It's our 50th anniversary symposium for MUFON, open to the public. That sounds exciting to me. I was going to ask Ira, just what's the mechanism for longevity, for life extension? Is it stem cells, or is it just the actual biology itself, or?
No, we spend time primarily looking at the so-called epigenetic reset that typically occurs during conception. So all of the bioactive properties that are found in ooplasm. So before stem cells are ever created, the egg cell is really the master cell of the body, and understanding all of the biochemical dynamics that are involved in taking a female and a male piece of DNA, which is 30 years old respectively, and how those reversion and reprogramming dynamics that typically occur during fertilization basically erase age and provide the new embryo with a complete set of so-called morphologic determinants to take its journey forward for 9 months to become a fully functioning organism. So we're focused on that whole cascade of regenerative and reprogramming biology. But as part of that, while that represents, what we'll call biologic resilience and fitness, we also need to think about the area of robustness. So basically stopping things from happening to us in the first place, and that is why, aside from studying salamanders and planarian worms and things like this that are wonderful regenerators, it's also why we study things like the immortal jellyfish and tardigrades, as I mentioned, and even species like Arctic Icelandica clams, which, have so-called demonstrable negligible senescence. So we found one just a few years ago that was over 500 years old. Been around longer than America. So there are all these wonderful properties, and we really need to understand all of the biologic components that go into creating this sort of ability to turn back time, combining with negligible senescence to really get what TJ referred to earlier as escape velocity, to really move beyond sort of the 75 or so years that were granted before most of us leave this planet.
Right. I know UCLA has done quite a bit of study on longevity, and there's a number of universities around the country that have longevity institutes. I think the USC school in Los Angeles also. It seems to be a topic a lot of people are looking at. And one thing that's always been curious to me, this is just more of an open-ended question, but as I go to my reunions and meet with the folks that I was in school with many, many, many years ago, I noticed there's a huge difference in how people are aging. Some have just aged to the point where they look very, very old. Others still look like they did when they were in colleges. What separates those two?
Well, if you ask that question to sort of a typical group of folks that does research in this area, you'll get 100 different answers. Some will say it is all environment, it is all external forces, while there's those that side solely on the genetic side of things, that the primary thing that results in sort of youthfulness versus not being that useful is sort of the age that your parents were when they conceived you. So, if you had older parents that were capable of conceiving, as I was, my father was 51 and my mother 41, you have sort of certain genetic properties that sort of enhance your health and fitness and so forth. Yet, one cannot overlook that, and so these kind of genetic benefits or lack thereof are demonstrated, in a lot of the sort of the super centenarian folks, these folks that live, 100, 110, 115 years, and they've been smoking and drinking every day of their lives, and they're hanging in there. So clearly, they got the genetic lottery. On the other hand, you cannot throw away exercise and eating right and staying out of the sun more than you need to be, and pollution and a million other factors. So, there's a variety of things that play on it. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, there are demonstrated, biologic cases of both negligible aging and age reversal that exist on this planet in organisms hundreds of millions of years old, and evolutionarily old. And we need to learn from that. We can't believe, coming back to to Janet's topic, we cannot believe that everything that is going to solve these problems is going to be invented in the last, decade. There is 3.5 billion years of evolution that happened before we got here, solving a lot of these problems already. So we're very happy. And even if someone did discover something, I'm happy to even go back beyond that. And, the fact that the salamander discovered regeneration 600 million years ago, before we played around with it, I have no problem. I'll give the credit to the salamander. I just want to rediscover it.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility we can have a science, technology, engineering, and math wing, sort of like a World's Fair with a mutual UFO network in the future? And, we can have also an ancient cultures and New Thought teachings area as well, Jan. Just maybe put up this row of vendors, if you're into science, and this one over here if you're into ancient cultures and origins. And let me ask Ira, if we did this in the future at some of our events, including we have Pennsylvania is well covered with John Bentray in the past, that's been on our show here, but whether he's with Mutual UFO Network or UFO Association or whomever, where would you fit in, whether you were doing someone else's or Mutual UFO Networks? Where would you fit in if we had a STEM area and then an ancient culture's origin? would you go under science, or would you prefer ancient cultures with what you're talking about, all these salamander things?
Well, I mean, I could see both in the sense that if I think of ancient cultures from the perspective of what we do, it's ancient. The culture of the biosphere and the 3.5 billion years of stuff that was here before we were here, doing all sorts of neat things, surviving ice ages and mass extinction events and all of that bit. So I mean, science, of course, the extremophiles, understanding how one survives in situations that normally kill us, how one protects oneself and extends life so that we can go into the cosmos. And then also, and I don't know if this falls into the area of sort of the astrophysical and the astrobiological, or if this goes a little beyond. And I know, I'll talk about this a bit later on in the program too. We cannot avoid some of these sort of unknown areas of information transfer and capture in the human mind and non-central nervous system information processing that's now demonstrated in humans. So there's a lot of more exotic and esoteric things that we work on too that I think merge very nicely with the overall themes of seeking answers.
All right, Jan, esoterically, can we discuss in the future with other UFO associations or other events and radio shows? Maybe we can have a whole media or press area. I don't know, but Jan, we want to give you the next few minutes to promote MUFON, if you don't mind, and we'll have you back another time. But if you would, just share with us how you see future events in the future. And now that the genie is out of the bottle, if you don't mind me saying so, Jan Harzan, Mutual UFO Network, give us your future, how you see the future of MUFON and the events, beginning with July.
Well, actually, very, very strong. In fact, our theme for the symposium this year is embracing our 50th anniversary of embracing the future. One of the topics on there that we were talking about having, and I've invited a speaker for that topic, I'm waiting for confirmation, is transhumanism, which is looking at how you use technology in different ways to help augment the human condition and length of time. I mean, what Ira's talking about could be a piece of that, right? Because you're trying to come up with a way to increase longevity for the species. I mean, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to live to at least 150 years. I don't know, maybe I was thinking even longer, maybe 1,000 years. But it's just technology is moving so quickly, and I think a lot of it's going to come from some of the study of what we're talking about with UFOs and these advanced civilizations that are visiting us, that I think we've got a lot of rapid change just immediately ahead of us. And I think people need to be ready for that. I think they need to be prepared for a much faster rate of change than what we've had in the past. And not that it hasn't been a quick rate of change, because you can think in my lifetime, going from a vacuum tube television set to a state-of-the-art, flat screen telephone here that has pretty much everything you could want inside of it. That's just a phenomenal rapid pace of change. So I think kids growing up today, they're growing up with the iPhone and with the iPad and those types of things. To them, that's just normal. That's the baseline. For those of us who are a little older, we realize how advanced that is compared to what used to be back in just a short 40, 50 years ago. So as far as MUFON goes, I mean, we're just continuing to collect the data. We have people reporting to us all the time, these events that are happening. We're trying to get to the bottom of what it is. And we're trying to get that information over to the scientists to help look for things they can do to improve the condition of humankind. Whether that be free energy, whether that be through faster than light travel, whether it be through learning telepathy or whatever the means might be. The things that we're observing in these cases is going to do nothing but help advance our civilization, as far as I'm concerned. So that's why I got into it. I worked for IBM for 37 years in the technology sector. I remember when computer rooms took up acres and acres. I mean, you had entire floors which just had disk drives on it. Those disk drives today are just a fraction of what's inside your phone in terms of storage. So advance that another 50